Hey y'all, it's me, Amanda, and I'm here to talk about the books I read in June. Can't believe it's July already. And yeah, I've got quite a few. So I have very limited time and small children running about, so let's just go for this. First one I have is an audiobook I finished, Secret Water by Arthur Ransom. I've been listening to All This Follows in Amazon's books. My husband loves them from when he was a kid. So anyway, this one, basically the characters are, they're at like an ocean, at the ocean, but they're at more of like a marsh. I don't know what the right way to say it is, but they're these little islands that are easy to like travel around, and the Amazons come as well, and they meet some new kids, and they have the goal that they're explorers and they want to map out the whole area and whatnot. But then these other kids are more like, I forget the word they used, but it was mildly offensive. They're like native to that area. They don't use the word natives though. This book, just a heads up, I thought it was cute. I enjoyed it. I see nothing particularly wrong or bad about it. I gave it a 3.75 stars. Wasn't like amazing, but it was better than like a typical book, I guess you could say. The thing to know, there is some antiquated language, and it could be construed as offensive to some people, and I totally respect that. I think if you are reading it or listening to it with your children, this is a good thing to know about it. Just heads up, there's a lot of like, oh, I think they're savages. There's a lot of kind of like offensive in that connotation. I don't think it's meant to be like offensive, but this was written in the 30s or like early 40s. Keep it in mind. Next, I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This one is an adult romance novel. Very different vibes. This one is about a lovely lady named Piper, who is basically like a socialite. Her mom remarried to a very rich man, and she's very pampered and enjoys the rich life of not having to work or do anything. And then one day she gets dumped, and she gets way too intoxicated and decides she's going to break into a rooftop pool and creates a lot of problems, gets herself into trouble. And while she might be bailed out of jail, her stepdad is like, look, turns out that your dad, before he died, had a bar, and why don't you go check out the bar, try to run it, do whatever, have a project, but you're going to go live in that town for a while and try to like live like a normal person. So basic premise. And her sister goes with her. Her sister's Hannah, very sweet. And then she meets Brendan. Am I right? Yeah, she meets Brendan, who is a fisherman, and specifically like crabs. And he's like a gruff type and, very down to earth kind of dude. He's a widower. His wife died like 7 years ago, but he's still wearing the ring and whatnot. Anyway, they have a connection. It's a romance. There you go. This is a great summer read. Super cute, super enjoyable. Highly recommend. Delightfully spicy. So far, I know Tessa Bailey's hit or miss for most people. But this one's a hit. This one's great. Piper can be a little annoying at first, but the thing is, you have to understand that sometimes with characters, they need to have development, and they have to start at a certain place in order to get development. And I felt like that was the case for Piper. So anyway, thoroughly enjoy it. Highly recommend. Yeah, I feel bad that I'm not talking more specifically about it, but I read it at the beginning of June, and that feels like forever ago. So I'm just gonna, that's it. Next, I read The Tombs of Achwan by Ursula Le Guin. This one is the second in the Earthsea series, Wizard of Earthsea. So the basic premise of this one is it's like a society, a place where this young lady is a high priestess. When the previous priestess died, they try to go find a child who was born like the same night that she died, or I don't know, a girl specifically. She was chosen. She basically lives in these maze-like tombs, or like she doesn't live specifically in the tombs, but she is in that area and she memorizes the tombs. And then she finds the main character from the last book, Jed, or Sparrowhawk. You know, knowing somebody's like real name is powerful. Anyway, and he's trying to find something, and eventually they work together for that goal. This one is a lot of setup without a ton of payoff, in my opinion. I just wasn't very interested. I got through it pretty quick, but mostly because it's very short. I just didn't think it was that great. It wasn't bad or anything. And I felt like the ending was kind of underwhelming as a whole. It just wasn't my thing. I love fantasy, but I think this world is just not quite what I'm into, I guess you could say. It's fine. I give it 3 stars. I don't know if I said for It Happened One Summer, I gave that 5 stars actually, which even though I read a lot of romance, it's pretty rare I give one an actual. Next, I read Leaving Paradise by Simone Eccles. We're going to say Eccles. This one, I don't even remember the characters' names. So this one is a young adult romance. The guy, Caleb, was leaving a party and drunk, and he hits the girl, Maggie, and ruins her life. I think she was really good at tennis. Man, it feels like forever ago that I read this. And messes up her leg. And he actually went to jail for this, and he's out of jail, and now he's trying to finish up high school. That's the basic premise there. And of course, they have an undeniable connection, attraction to each other, and only they understand each other and whatnot. This one, I initially was annoyed because Caleb really felt very well, I've done my time, so I don't have to feel bad about what I did. There's more reasons for that you find out later on. Okay, that's fine. But I just never felt really convinced of the romance in this one. It just wasn't my thing. And the other thing is it leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger. This is not a happily ever after at the end of this book. This is actually a series. There's more than one. I wasn't interested enough to continue. I'm done. It was fine, and I mean, I like the concept of he hurt her, but then he's the one who could help her out and whatnot. But it just, you didn't get me, I gave it 3 stars. Next, I read Hook, Line, and Sinker, also by Tessa Bailey. This is the book that goes with It Happened One Summer. This is about Piper's sister Hannah and Fox, one of Brendan's friends who also is a fisherman. Sorry, I'm wearing totally the wrong bra with this dress, but my other bra that I think would work just isn't clean right now, so we're gonna pretend I'm classier than I really am right now, okay? Just work with me, okay? Okay, so this one, basic concept, Hannah's kind of I wouldn't say totally shy, but she's more introverted, more of a quiet person. She's really into music, and she wants to get a big break with what she's interested in, which is working on movie soundtracks. And she's honestly really good at picking the right music and picking the right, for the mood or the feeling of a scene and whatnot. And then Fox is playboy, basically, and they actually become friends, and they become palsies. And then Hannah manages to convince, I think it's the director of the movie that she's currently working on, to film the movie in the town that, her sister and future brother-in-law and Fox all live in. And then Hannah stays with Fox during this time to, save her money, because he's a fisherman. He's gone for days at a time. Sounds like a great plan. And of course, this is an adult romance. Feelings happen. Now, I had heard really mixed things about this book. I knew a few people liked it. I've seen a lot of people really not like it, especially a lot of people who like the first book. And it's very interesting seeing different people's opinions. I personally really enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars. This book was imperfect. There were things about it that I didn't like, and upon reflection, like, you know, there's certain things that didn't quite work, but as a whole, I really liked their connection. I enjoyed the book. I was in it. I read it quickly. I was enjoying it. This book is what I didn't like as much about this book is it reminds me a lot of Fix Her Up, also by Tessa Bailey. I feel like Georgie and Travis, I think those are the names of the characters in that one, very similar vibes. Especially Travis and Fox, I felt like were very similar in personality. And I think it would have been better if Fox had been a little more original or a little different, tweak him a little bit. Because they had this whole like, yeah, I'm a playboy, but it's because nobody believes in me and I'm really tortured. And it's just like, I felt like Hannah put up with him a little more than she should have had to. Like, you hit a point where you're just like, Hannah girl, you deserve so much better than this. But as a whole, I enjoyed the character study. I enjoyed that he wasn't, you know, I liked the fact that Tessa Bailey really tried to get behind like why he is the way he is. It's just it was a little reminiscent of that book, unfortunately. But I think better. I think between the two, I would read Hook, Line, and Sinker. But yeah, I don't know why people dislike it so much. I haven't watched some of those negative reviews. I stay away from negative reviews in general because I don't want to be influenced to dislike a book before I've read it. But anyway. Don't know why people dislike it so much. I thought it was very enjoyable. Next, I read Summer of the Monkeys by Wilson Rawls. Now, this is the guy who wrote Where the Red Fern Grows. Heads up, this is not like that book. This is not a big old downer. This is actually a really happy book. It's really sweet. So this one is about a boy named Jay Barry. And Jay, he has a twin sister. His twin sister, unfortunately, was born with, her leg was all twisted up, for lack of a better way to put it. And he and his family live out in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, basically they're farmers, living the quiet farm life. And it's one summer, and a nearby circus is on a train, and there was a derailment. Fortunately, most of the animals survived, but a bunch of monkeys got away. And one of the monkeys in particular is actually an ape. He's a chimpanzee named Jimbo. And there's a big reward if someone catches all the monkeys, and an even bigger one for just Jimbo. So this kiddo makes it his mission to catch all these monkeys because he wants the money to buy himself a gun and a pony. He's 14, so I think he really means a horse, but I have to admit, while he's 14, he acts much younger than his years. Not the most mature kid, not the brightest kid, which I found entertaining. This is actually really funny and cute, like very funny. And again, this kid is not bright, which I thought was interesting. A lot of kids' books, I feel like they try to make the protagonist like a really smart, clever kid. No, he is not. And it's very clear, and it's meant on purpose, so I found it very entertaining. The ending is super sweet, very predictable, but really sweet, and I really loved it. I gave this 4.5 stars. Definitely recommend for a good kid's book. And then the next one I read was Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. This is actually my first Lisa Kleypas. I decided to go with the Wallflower series because I heard people say that, like, if you like Bridgerton, this is a good choice and something that people felt like would be a great one to get adapted someday, and totally agree. This was great. So this one is about a young debutante named Annabelle. And Annabelle is poor. And basically, she's very beautiful. She's sort of charming when she wants to be, but she doesn't have money. and her only hope is to try to marry, a rich guy, but she doesn't have a dowry, and I don't know. She's been through a few seasons. She's nearing the end of her time. She makes friends with some of the other wallflowers, three other girls, so there's 4 books, one for each season. They all are like, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna get this figured out. We're gonna get you a husband, Annabelle. Meanwhile, there's a gentleman named Simon who is not a typical gentleman. He's very, very rich, but through trade, which of course is unacceptable. But he's so rich that he's managed to get himself into the upper classes anyway, and he's able to go to these events. But a lot of people look down on him because he's not of noble birth. Really seems like a great match between the two of them, but of course she can't stand him. He's too brash and rude, and anyway, you get where this is going. It's a romance between the two of them. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super cute, super sweet, very solid throughout. The end has a bit of a plot device that I wasn't like crazy about, but it's fine. I really enjoyed it. I liked the writing style. Lisa Kleypas brought it. It was good. Do recommend. I give it 4 stars. The next book is The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan. So this is my first book of the month book that I got. I think it was one for May. It might have been an add-on, but whatever. I signed up and I was like, I decided to read this because it was recommended by one of my favorite authors, Sarah Addison Allen. Was like, read this book. And I was like, okay. I kept wanting to sign up for book of the month. So I'm like, you know what? If they have this book, I will sign up. And they did. So it was a sign. Now, this one is a historical fiction. So part of the story, it's a back and forth between past and present, but part of the story is like really in the past, and part of it is more like, so it's like 40s versus 60s, I believe, or like right around like 1940, I think, and then in the 60s, like 20 years later. And this centers around our main character, Hazel. And Hazel and her little sister, Flora, are sent off to the countryside because of the fact that, World War II is about to happen and they want to keep the children safe. They live in London and they're going to the countryside to stay safe. They end up living with a really delightful, really sweet woman named Bridgie. I could not figure out how you're supposed to pronounce her name, and I think Harry is the boy. Harry, yep. And Harry, her son, who's about the same age as Hazel. What do you know? And he is like the sweetest boy. And unfortunately, very tragically, Flora goes missing. And Hazel had this make-believe stories that she would always tell Flora to try to comfort her. She made up a world called Whisperwood, and they would tell all kinds of stories about it. Well, again, Flora goes missing. It's very tragic. And then one day, Hazel is working in a bookstore. She's just gotten a promotion at a new job. And she's looking at a book at this rare bookstore that came in, and she sees that it's like called like The Tales of Whisperwood. And she's like looking at it, and it's very clearly her and Flora's world. And so this book is just really gripping. You're just like, you've got the mystery. What happened to Flora sitting there? Like, and there's a lot of possibilities. Like, what if there really is magic and she really did go to this magical world called Whisperwood? What if she's alive and she was the one telling the story? What if she actually did die? Like, everyone thought she had drowned in a river, because there was a little girl body found quite a ways away, but on the same river, many years later. There's many possibilities about what could have happened. And so I found this really gripping the whole time. And I cried a lot because, God, Hazel's pain of losing her sister. She loved her sister so much. She was a really good big sister. And this whole thing is just so tragic. But great ending. I absolutely love this book. 5 stars. Highly recommend it. It's very gripping. It's emotionally painful, but read it. Next, I read one of my old books. I go new book, old book, Kindle book, unless you, pretty obvious what the pattern is. This is Vessel by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a young adult fantasy novel. This takes place in a desert world, and it's basically the main character, Liana, is a vessel, which means her body is supposed to be taken over by their tribe's goddess, and the goddess is going to take care of anyone. Unfortunately, this does kill Liana. That's what it's supposed to do. But she dances all night, everything's done properly, and the goddess never comes. Her tribe leaves her to die. And another character named Corbin shows up, and he is one of the gods. He's the only one who, the vessel with the god in his body, the only one that actually succeeded. And he's convinced that they're trapped or something like that. So they go on a mission to find the other vessels and to go and get the gods back. Figure out what happened. Because this desert world is very harsh, and the gods are able to do things like help provide water and food for the people. They really rely on these gods to help them. So this one, I really enjoyed it. Good world building, storytelling. We have a great villain. He's very multi-dimensional, where you really get where he's coming from and what he's trying to do. The only thing about this one is the ending. I didn't entirely understand it. I understand like most of it, but some of it is a little... I didn't 100% understand everything. I have questions, but it is what it is sometimes. So I give it 4 stars. Recommend. I DNF'd a book called Parched by Z.L. Arcady. This one, or Arcade, this one is like a vampire romance that I got for free on the Kindle a long time ago. It wasn't my thing. It seemed a little hokey. I wasn't feeling it. I knew I hadn't really paid. If I paid any money for it, it wasn't much. I just didn't bother. And then my last book for the month was Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. This one, super cute. It's about a widow named Hala who... This one is an adult fantasy. And what's really fun is it's like a low-stakes fantasy, which is like a new concept to me, and I love it. It's about a character named Hala. And she has left the estate of her late husband's great uncle, I believe. And then her late husband's family is fighting her for this estate. They are horrible, awful, painful people to deal with. And she is just... And so they want her to marry the cousin of this guy. And so she ends up... They lock her in her bedroom, giving her food and water, but like they won't let her out until she agrees to marry this guy. So she is desperate, and she's just like, you know what? I just don't want to live like this anymore. I'm going to peace out. So she decides she's going to kill herself with a sword that's on the wall. She opens the sword, and out comes Sarkis, this ancient warrior who lives in the sword, kind of. But he has his own sword when he comes out. I don't know. It's funny, okay? And he is going to help her get her inheritance. So they go on a journey to the next largest town nearby to find a lawyer and go ahead and get this inheritance so she wants to have dowries for her nieces, which is honestly really sweet. So that's basic low-stakes fantasy plot, and I absolutely love this. It's a great it's romance, by the way, too. There's romance between Swordman and Hala. Hala is hilarious. She is not the smartest, but she's not dumb either. She asks tons of questions, annoys everyone around her. It's great. She also knows that acting dumb can be a great weapon. Not a weapon, a great way of defense. And then you've got Sarkis, who's just like super aggressive with everything, doesn't trust anybody. It's absolutely hilarious, super fun. And we get other great characters as well. And I just absolutely ate it up. 4.5 stars. Highly recommend. You just, you know, you can't get better than some good romantic low stakes fantasy. I love it. I'm saying low stakes, like some might say cozy. I didn't find it particularly cozy personally. There's a lot of sleeping in ditches, not cozy to me, but anyway, if you actually watched the whole way, theoretically it's going to be a little after July 4th when I do this, but if you could leave me a fireworks emoji, assuming there is one, right? Hope you're all doing well, and bye.